The day the Zolaxians arrived changed everything. Their massive ships appeared in Earth's orbit without warning, casting shadows over major cities across the globe. Humanity held its breath, weapons aimed skyward, as the first transmission came through. "We come in peace," the translation said. The voice belonged to Grand Admiral Zorex of the Zolaxian Exploration Fleet. That was 2 years ago. Now Jack Monroe stood in the gleaming hallway of the Zolaxian starship Vanguard, feeling the stares of the towering aliens around him. At 6 feet tall, Jack had rarely felt small before, but the Zolaxians made him feel like a child. The shortest of them stood 8 feet tall, with broad shoulders and blue-tinted skin that seemed as tough as armor. Jack adjusted his uniform, the standard issue for human representatives in the exchange program. Unlike the military uniform he once wore as a Special Forces soldier, this one was designed to show friendship. But old habits died hard, and Jack still stood at attention as Commander Vrax approached. "Cultural Attaché Monroe," Vrax said, his translator converting the series of clicks and hums into English. "You will join us on the command deck for today's patrol." "Yes, Commander," Jack replied with a nod. As they walked through the corridors, other Zolaxians moved aside, some watching Jack with curiosity, others with thinly disguised contempt. Jack heard the whispers. Their translation devices weren't always switched on when they thought humans weren't paying attention. "The commander's pet is following him again. Such fragile creatures. I'm surprised they managed space travel at all." Jack kept his face neutral. He'd heard worse in his years of service. Part of his mission was to gather information about Zolaxian technology and culture, and letting them underestimate him made that job easier. The command deck of the Vanguard was a marvel of technology. Holographic displays showed star systems and ship positions with perfect clarity. Jack took his assigned position behind Commander Vrax's chair, taking mental notes of the control systems. Human technology was advanced. They had colonized Mars and established bases throughout the solar system. But the Zolaxians were centuries ahead. "Cultural attaché," said Lieutenant Kraz, Vrax's second in command. "Perhaps you would be more comfortable in your quarters. These operations might be beyond your understanding." Several Zolaxian officers chuckled. Jack smiled politely. "Thank you for your concern, Lieutenant, but I'm here to learn." Kraz's upper eyes narrowed. Zolaxians had 2 sets of eyes, the WAC, lower pair for normal vision, and the upper for detecting energy patterns. "Very well. Try not to touch anything. Your species is known for its curiosity, much like the small animals you keep as companions." More laughter rippled through the command deck. Commander Vrax raised a hand, silencing them. "Enough, Lieutenant. The human is here at my invitation." The patrol was routine, checking the boundaries of what the Zolaxians had designated as protected space around Earth. While they claimed to be protecting humanity from other, more hostile species, Jack and others in Earth's leadership suspected the patrols were as much about keeping humans contained as keeping others out. During a quiet moment, Commander Vrax gestured Jack closer to his command chair. "Your world's oceans," Vrax said, his voice lower than usual. "They cover most of your planet, yet you build your cities on land. Why is that?" Jack considered the question. "We evolved on land. Though we've adapted to many environments, we never developed the ability to breathe underwater." Vrax nodded, the gesture oddly human-like, something he'd picked up during diplomatic exchanges. "Adaptation. Yes. Your species seems quite good at that, despite your limitations." "Limitations often lead to innovation, Commander," Jack replied. Vrax looked at him with what Jack had learned to recognize as curiosity. An interesting perspective. The conversation was interrupted by an alert. A human vessel had deviated from its approved flight path. The USS Dauntless, a research ship, had changed course without clearance from Zolaxian oversight. "Humans," Kraz spat. "They agree to protocols, then ignore them at will." Commander Vrax opened a communication channel. "USS Dauntless, you have deviated from your flight plan. Explain." After a moment of static, a response came through. "Zolaxian Vanguard. This is Captain Laura Bennett of the Dauntless. We've detected unusual readings from Europa and are investigating. It's within our solar system." Your permissions do not include course changes without approval, Kraz cut in. Return to your approved course immediately. Jack stepped forward. Commander, if I may, Europa has been a human research interest for decades. The Dauntless is a scientific vessel, not a military one. Vrax considered this while Kraz glared at Jack. The pet speaks out of turn, Kraz said. This is a matter of protocol. It is also a matter of respect, Vrax replied. Captain Bennett, you may proceed to Europa, but next time request permission first. We will update your clearance. Thank you, Commander. Dauntless out. After the communication ended, Jack noticed Kraz's expression. The lieutenant clearly disagreed with the decision but wouldn't challenge his superior openly. You show them too much leniency, Kraz finally said. These humans need firm boundaries. We are here as allies, not rulers, Vrax replied. Allies? Kraz laughed. What can they offer us? Their technology is primitive, their bodies weak. They live barely a century before dying. They're clever pets, nothing more. Jack remained silent, but Vrax noticed his controlled expression. You disagree, Cultural Attaché Monroe? The commander asked. All eyes turned to Jack. This was dangerous territory, but also an opportunity. History is full of examples of those who underestimated humans, Commander, Jack said carefully. We may not have your physical strength or longevity, but we've survived and thrived against considerable odds. Kraz made a dismissive gesture. Pretty words, but facts remain facts. A Zolaxian child could break your bones with little effort. Strength isn't everything, Lieutenant, Jack replied. There are many forms of power. Philosophical drivel, Kraz muttered. Commander Vrax's communication device chimed. He answered it, listened briefly, then looked at Jack. Cultural Attaché, we have received a transmission from your planet. Ambassador Clark wishes to speak with you. Jack followed Vrax to the private communication chamber. Once alone, the image of Ambassador Richard Clark appeared on the screen. Jack, the ambassador said, his expression serious. How's your situation up there? Maintaining cover, sir. The Zolaxians still see us as harmless curiosities. Good. Keep it that way. But stay alert. We're detecting increased military activity in the Zolaxian fleet. Something's happening, but we don't know what yet. Jack nodded. I've noticed tension among the officers. Commander Vrax seems reasonable, but others like Lieutenant Kraz view humans with open contempt. That's consistent with our observations. Keep building your relationship with Vrax. He may be valuable if things go south. And our contingency plans? Clark's expression hardened. In place. All human representatives have been briefed. If action becomes necessary, you'll receive the signal. Understood. After the communication ended, Jack took a moment to center himself. Outside the chamber, the Zolaxians continued their duties, confident in their superiority, unaware that every human pet in their fleet was far more than they appeared. Jack rejoined Commander Vrax on the command deck, resuming his position with the quiet patience that had kept him alive through countless missions on Earth. The Zolaxians saw a docile human representative. They didn't see the wolf in sheep's clothing, and Jack hoped, for everyone's sake, they'd never need to. 6 months passed aboard the Zolaxian ship Vanguard. Jack Monroe had settled into a routine, spending his days observing the aliens and nights sending encrypted reports back to Earth. The tension between humans and Zolaxians had grown steadily, worse during this time. Jack stood at the viewport in the ship's observation deck, watching as 3 Zolaxian patrol vessels surrounded the USS Reliance, Earth's main diplomatic ship. Though the Zolaxians claimed these were routine security measures, Jack knew better. They were showing force. Enjoying the view, human? Lieutenant Kraz's voice came from behind him. Jack turned, keeping his face neutral. The ships are impressive. Yes, they are. Kraz moved closer, towering over Jack. One Zolaxian cruiser could destroy your entire Earth fleet. Let's hope it never comes to that, Jack replied calmly. Kraz made a sound that Jack had learned was Zolaxian laughter. Always diplomatic, like a well-trained pet. Jack had grown used to these jabs. He let them slide off him like water. Every insult was another piece of intelligence. Kraz's growing hostility reflected a larger movement within the Zalaxian fleet. "Tell me, Lieutenant," Jack said, changing the subject. "What do Zalaxians hope to gain from our alliance?" Kraz's upper eyes narrowed. "Alliance? Is that what you call it? How quaint." Before Jack could respond, Commander Vrax entered the observation deck. Kraz straightened immediately. "Lieutenant, you're needed on the command deck," Vrax said. Kraz bowed slightly and left, giving Jack one last dismissive look. Vrax moved to stand beside Jack at the viewport. For a moment, they both watched the ships in silence. "My lieutenant has strong opinions," Vrax finally said. "Many of your people share them," Jack replied. Vrax made a gesture that Jack had learned meant acknowledgement. "There are factions within our government. Some see humans as potential allies, others as something else." This was the most direct Vrax had ever been about Zalaxian politics. Jack seized the opportunity. "And where do you stand, Commander?" Vrax turned his four eyes toward Jack. "I've lived long enough to know that appearances can be deceiving. My people see your physical weaknesses and assume that defines you. But you're not so sure. I've studied your history, Jack Monroe. Your species has a remarkable ability to survive against overwhelming odds." Jack smiled slightly. "We're stubborn, that way." "Stubborn," Vrax repeated the word. "Yes, a useful trait." Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm. Vrax's communication device lit up. "Commander, your presence is required immediately," a voice said. Vrax touched Jack's shoulder, a surprisingly human gesture. "We'll continue this later." After Vrax left, Jack remained at the viewport for a few minutes, then made his way to his quarters. Once inside, he activated a small device hidden in his personal items that scrambled any surveillance. He then removed a panel near his bed, revealing a hidden compartment with a secure communication unit. "Monroe reporting," he said softly. Ambassador Clark's voice came through clearly. "The situation is escalating, Jack. Our intelligence suggests the Zalaxian High Command is split. The military faction is gaining influence. I've noticed. The patrols around Earth have doubled. Commander Vrax hinted at internal disagreements. Can he be trusted?" Jack considered this. "I believe he's skeptical of his government's more aggressive members. He's shown respect toward humans, not just tolerance." "Good. We need allies among them. What about the rest of the crew?" "Most follow Kraz's lead. They see us as amusing pets at best, potential threats at worst." "Have they noticed anything unusual about any of our people?" "No," Jack said. "The disguises are holding. The Zalaxians are so convinced of their superiority that they don't look closer. Keep it that way. We have 26 operatives embedded across their fleet now. If things go bad, you'll receive the activation code." "Understood. Monroe out." Jack restored his quarters to normal appearance and lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. He thought about the other cultural attachés throughout the Zalaxian fleet. Like him, they all had military backgrounds. Like him, they all carried hidden weapons and communications equipment. And like him, they all waited for a signal they hoped would never come. The next morning, Jack made his way to the ship's training area. Though meant for Zalaxian exercises, humans were permitted to use it during off-peak hours. Jack began a routine of stretches and basic exercises, careful not to display his full capabilities. He was midway through when Lieutenant Kraz entered with two other officers. "Ah, the human is attempting to strengthen himself," Kraz said loudly. "How admirable." Jack continued his exercises without responding. "Perhaps he needs a training partner," one of the other officers suggested. Kraz stepped forward. "Would you like that, human? Some proper Zalaxian combat instruction?" Jack stood up slowly. "I appreciate the offer, Lieutenant, but I wouldn't want to waste your time." "Nonsense," Kraz said, his tone making it clear this wasn't a friendly offer. "I insist." Jack knew he had to be careful. Refusing would seem suspicious, but he couldn't reveal his true abilities either. "All right," he said hesitantly. "Just basic moves, please." Kraz smiled, showing his teeth. "Of course. Let's begin with defensive postures. What followed was more harassment than instruction. Kraz repeatedly pushed Jack off balance, claiming it was part of the training. Jack allowed it, falling more dramatically than necessary, playing into their expectations. You see, Kraz told his companions, humans lack the proper center of gravity. They're so easy to topple. The other officers laughed. Jack got up again, apparently struggling. One more time, Kraz said, moving toward Jack with his hand outstretched. This time, when Kraz pushed, Jack shifted his weight slightly, not enough to avoid the fall, but enough to make Kraz stumble forward a step. It looked like an accident. Interesting, Kraz said, his upper eyes focusing intently on Jack. Try again. Jack returned to position. This time, when Kraz pushed, Jack fell as expected. The lieutenant seemed satisfied, but Jack noticed a new look in his eyes, the faintest hint of suspicion. Later that day, Jack was summoned to the command deck. Commander Vrax stood before a large display showing the USS Reliance. Your diplomatic vessel is requesting permission to return to Earth, Vrax said when Jack approached. They claim engine troubles. That's concerning, Jack said. The Reliance is our newest ship. Indeed, and our scans show no engine malfunctions. Jack felt a chill. Something was happening. What will you do, Commander? Vrax's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. I've granted permission against the recommendation of Lieutenant Kraz, but our ships will escort them. Jack nodded. Thank you. As he left the command deck, Jack noticed Kraz watching him with all 4 eyes. The lieutenant's suspicion was growing. Jack would need to be more careful. Their masquerade couldn't fall apart now, not when tensions were this high. That night, Jack received an encrypted message from Earth. Watchdog alert. Stand by for instructions. The code meant only one thing. Intelligence had detected a significant threat. Jack lay awake for hours, mentally reviewing emergency protocols and extraction plans. Whatever was coming, he needed to be ready. The calm facade of the human pet was about to be tested. Jack awoke to the sound of alarms blaring throughout the vanguard. He was on his feet instantly, years of training kicking in. Something was wrong. He quickly dressed and was about to leave his quarters when his door slid open. Commander Vrax stood there, his large frame filling the doorway. Jack Monroe, Vrax said, his voice lower than usual. Come with me. Jack noticed Vrax had used his first name, something the commander had never done before. What's happening? Not here. Vrax looked down the corridor nervously. Follow me. They moved quickly through the ship, taking routes Jack had never used before. After several minutes, they arrived at a small room filled with maintenance equipment. Vrax sealed the door behind them. Commander, what's going on? Jack asked, his senses on high alert. Vrax's 4 eyes focused on Jack. The USS Reliance has been seized. Your Captain Foster and the crew are being held as prisoners. Jack felt his blood run cold. By whose orders? The military faction has made its move. Admiral Zorn has taken control of the High Command. He claims humans were planning an attack and is using this as proof. That's a lie, Jack said. I know. Vrax's admission surprised Jack. But many of my people believe it. There have been reports of human ships gathering near your Mars colony. Zorn claims they are preparing for war. Jack kept his face neutral, though he knew those ships were there to evacuate the colony if necessary. A contingency plan put in place months ago. Why are you telling me this? Vrax hesitated. I am to bring you to Lieutenant Kraz for questioning. You and all other humans on Zolaxian vessels are now classified as security risks. I see, Jack said quietly. And instead, you brought me here. I have served for 200 years in the fleet. I have seen many species, visited many worlds. What is happening now? It is not right. Jack studied Vrax for a moment. This was a crucial decision point. What will you do, Commander? I cannot openly defy orders, but I can delay. I told Kraz I would search your quarters while he prepares the interrogation chamber. Jack nodded. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. Your situation is grave. All human cultural attachés are being rounded up. Jack thought of the other operatives embedded throughout the fleet. They would be implementing their emergency protocols by now. Commander, I need access to a communication terminal. Vrax looked troubled. That would be against orders. People will die if this escalates further, Jack said. Both human and Zolaxian. After a moment's hesitation, Vrax removed a small device from his uniform. This is my personal communicator. It can reach any ship in the fleet. You have 5 minutes before its use will be detected. Jack took the device. I need privacy. Surprisingly, Vrax moved toward the door. 5 minutes. Then I must take you to Kraz, or we will both be suspect. Once alone, Jack quickly entered the emergency activation code and spoke the phrase that would alert all human operatives. Watchdog Protocol Alpha. Confirm status. Responses came quickly, text only to avoid voice detection. Operative Hayes, Zolaxian Ship Terminus. Contained but uncompromised. Operative Wilson, Zolaxian Ship Dominion. Compromised, implementing extraction. Operative Grant, Zolaxian Flagship Sovereign. Hostages confirmed on level 12. Guards heavy. More responses streamed in. Of the 26 operatives embedded in the Zolaxian fleet, 22 were still free and able to act. 4 were already captured. Jack sent one final message. Execute Watchdog Response Delta. Primary target, secure hostages on Sovereign. He deleted the message history and handed the communicator back to Vrax when he returned. What happens now? Vrax asked. Now we play for time. Jack looked directly at Vrax. I need you to take me to Kraz. Vrax's eyes widened in surprise. That is not wise. Trust me, Commander. They left the maintenance room and headed toward the interrogation chambers. As they walked, Jack spoke quietly. Whatever happens next, remember this. Humans value loyalty above all else. We don't abandon our people, and we don't forget those who help us. Vrax seemed troubled by these words but said nothing. Lieutenant Kraz was waiting in the interrogation chamber along with 2 security officers. His face showed satisfaction when Jack was brought in. Finally, Kraz said, the human pet will show us his true nature. Lieutenant, Vrax said formally, I present the human as ordered. Kraz gestured to a metal chair in the center of the room. Sit, Jack complied, allowing the security officers to secure his arms with metal restraints. They were confident in their superior strength and technology. That would be their first mistake. Now, human, Kraz began, pacing around the chair. You will tell us about your species' plans for attack. There are no such plans, Jack said calmly. Kraz struck the wall with his fist, leaving a dent in the metal. Do not lie. We intercepted communications from your Mars colony. Warships are gathering. Defensive measures only, Jack replied. Your Admiral Zorn has been moving your fleet into aggressive positions for weeks. So you admit you were spying. I was observing. It's not the same thing. Kraz leaned down, his face inches from Jack's. Your fragile body cannot withstand Zolaxian interrogation techniques. Tell us what you know, and your suffering will be brief. Jack looked at Vrax, who stood uncomfortably by the door. Commander, what do your instincts tell you? Does this feel right? Before Vrax could answer, Kraz struck Jack across the face. The blow would have broken a normal human's jaw, but Jack had been enhanced during his special forces training. He took the hit, allowing his lip to bleed for show. The pet does not address you, Commander, Kraz snarled. He speaks only to answer my questions. Jack spat blood on the floor. You've made a serious mistake, Lieutenant. And what mistake is that? Kraz asked mockingly. You've taken hostages. Something in Jack's tone made Kraz pause. For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. Your threats mean nothing. You are secured and alone. Jack smiled despite his bleeding lip. Am I? At that moment, the ship's alarms began blaring again. Kraz's communication device lit up with urgent messages. What is happening? He demanded into the device. A panicked voice responded. Security breach on multiple decks. Human cultural attachés have escaped containment. Kraz looked at Jack with new understanding dawning in his eyes. What have you done? I told you. Taking hostages was a mistake. The ship shuddered suddenly, as if struck by something. The lights flickered. Commander, a voice called over the ship-wide communication system. We've lost control of engineering. Systems are being overridden. Vrax moved closer to Jack. What is happening? The wolves are out of their sheep's clothing, Commander, Jack said quietly. Now you'll see what humans are really capable of. The restraints on Jack's chair suddenly released, the ship's system overridden by one of his fellow operatives. He stood up, rubbing his wrists. Kraz reached for his weapon, but Jack moved with unexpected speed. Before the lieutenant could react, Jack had disarmed him and stood holding the Zolaxian weapon. Now, Jack said, his demeanor completely changed. We're going to have a different conversation. About those hostages on the Sovereign. The security officers moved to attack, but Vrax raised his hand. Stop. Listen to him. Kraz stared in disbelief. Commander, he is one human. He is not just one human, Vrax interrupted. Look around you, Lieutenant. Our ship is compromised. The humans were never pets. They were wolves among us, watching and waiting. Jack nodded to Vrax. Your commander understands. Now, who else wants to understand the truth about humans, and who wants to learn it the hard way? Chaos spread through the Zolaxian fleet like wildfire. On the flagship Sovereign, Samantha Hayes moved silently through the ventilation system. For months she had served as a diplomatic aide, smiling politely as Zolaxian officers treated her, like an amusing pet. They never questioned why she spent so much time studying the ship's layout, or why she always seemed to get lost near critical systems. Now, as she crawled through the narrow ducts that the larger Zolaxians could never access, she activated the small device in her ear. Hayes in position near holding cell block. Status report. The response came quickly. Grant here. Main security hub compromised. Camera systems looping false footage. You have 10 minutes before they notice. Copy that. Samantha reached a junction and peered through the grate. Below her, 4 armed Zolaxian guards stood outside a sealed door. Inside that room were Captain Foster and the crew of the USS Reliance. 23 humans held hostage. She removed a small case from her pocket, assembling the pieces inside into what looked like a pen. It was actually a neural disruptor, designed specifically for Zolaxian physiology. The weapon had been disguised as a medical device for her human allergies. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the grate open and dropped into the corridor. The guards turned in surprise. Before they could react, Samantha fired the disruptor twice, sending 2 guards crumpling to the floor. The other 2 reached for their weapons, but Samantha was already moving. She slid between the legs of one guard, using her small size as an advantage. As she came up behind him, she fired again, dropping him. The last guard managed to activate his alarm before Samantha's final shot took him down. Time just got shorter, she muttered, moving to the door controls. Her fingers flew over the alien interface, applying the access codes she had memorized months ago. The door slid open to reveal the startled faces of the Reliance crew. Who are you? Captain Foster asked, standing protectively in front of his people. Samantha Hayes, Earth Special Operations, she replied, tossing him a spare weapon. Time to go, sir. On the Vanguard, Jack Monroe stood facing Lieutenant Kraz and Commander Vrax. The ship continued to shudder as systems were hijacked throughout the vessel. You need to make a choice, Lieutenant, Jack said, keeping the Zolaxian weapon trained on Kraz. This can end without further violence. Kraz's upper eyes narrowed. You expect me to believe that? Your kind has clearly been planning this attack. For months. Not an attack, Jack corrected. A contingency. We hoped it would never be necessary. Commander Vrax stepped forward. I've seen enough. Lieutenant, stand down. Commander, you're betraying your own species. I'm preventing unnecessary bloodshed, Vrax replied. The humans have shown remarkable restraint. They could have sabotaged our ships at any time. A new message came through the communication system. Vanguard Command, this is Operative Hayes. Hostages secured. Requesting extraction coordinates. Jack smiled. You see, Lieutenant, we're not here to destroy you. We're here to rescue our people. Kraz looked between Jack and Vrax, realizing he was losing control of the situation. Your weapons cannot harm me, he snarled suddenly, lunging toward Jack. Jack had been waiting for this. Instead of backing away from the charging Zolaxian, he stepped forward, using Kraz's momentum against him. With precision that shocked everyone in the room, Jack executed a perfect throw that sent the much larger alien crashing to the floor. The security officers moved to intervene, but Vrax blocked their path. Stand down, that's an order, Kraz struggled, to his feet, disbelief written across his face. How? Your kind lacks the strength. Strength isn't everything, Jack said, echoing his words from days earlier. Technique, preparation, and intelligence matter more. The ship's communication system activated again. All operatives, status report. One by one, the human agents responded. Engineering secured. Weapons systems locked down. Communication, hub under control. Shuttle bay secured, extraction vessels prepared. Jack looked at Vrax. Commander, I need to speak to Admiral Zorn. That would be unprecedented. He will, Jack interrupted. Because right now, human operatives. Control key systems on 12 ships in your fleet, including the Sovereign. We're not looking to start a war. We want our people back, and then we want to talk. Vrax studied Jack for a long moment, then nodded. I will arrange it. While Vrax worked to establish communication with the Sovereign, Jack received updates from the other operatives. The Zolaxians were responding to the situation with increasing force, but the humans had the advantage of surprise and preparation. Your people fight well, Vrax said as he returned. Small but effective. We've had practice, Jack replied. Earth's history is full of conflicts where we were outmatched in size or numbers. I'm beginning to understand why Admiral Zorn feared your kind. Fear leads to poor decisions. We don't want conflict with the Zolaxians. The main screen activated, showing Admiral Zorn's face. His expression was a mixture of rage and disbelief. Who dares to demand my attention? He growled. Jack stepped forward. Jack Monroe, Earth Special Forces. The human pet speaks as if it has authority, Zorn scoffed. This pet and others like me now control critical systems throughout your fleet, Jack replied calmly. We have also rescued the hostages from the Reliance. Zorn's 4 eyes blinked in surprise. Impossible! Check your holding cells, Admiral. There was a pause as Zorn consulted with someone off-screen. His expression darkened. What do you want, human? First, safe passage for all humans back to Earth space. Second, a real diplomatic meeting. Not this pretense of an alliance while you position your fleet for dominance. You are in no position to make demands. Jack smiled thinly. Actually, we are. Right now, human operatives have access to your ship's life support systems, engines, and weapons. We don't want to use that access, but we will if necessary. On the Sovereign, Samantha Hayes led the freed hostages through the ship's maintenance corridors. They moved quietly, avoiding the main hallways where Zolaxian security teams searched for them. How much further to the shuttle bay? Captain Foster whispered. 2 more junctions, Samantha replied. Our people have secured it. They rounded a corner and found themselves face to face with a Zolaxian security team. For a moment, both groups froze in surprise. Then Samantha moved. Using the combat techniques she had hidden for months, she attacked with speed and precision. The other human operatives joined the fight, revealing their own hidden skills. The Zolaxians, expecting weak, frightened humans, were unprepared for the coordinated assault. Within moments, they were incapacitated. Keep moving, Samantha ordered, helping a wounded crew member. We're almost there. Back on the Vanguard, Admiral Zorn glared at Jack through the screen. You've made your point, human. But know this, my people will not forget this treachery. There's been no treachery, Admiral, Jack replied. We responded to a threat. You took our people hostage based on false information about our intentions. Commander Vrax stepped forward. Admiral, I believe we should reconsider our approach to the humans. They have shown both restraint and capability today. You defend them, Vrax? I speak from observation. They could have destroyed our ships but chose not to. They sought only to free their people. Zorn seemed to consider this. Very well, the humans may leave our ships, but this alliance is over. No, Jack said firmly. Not over. Just beginning. For real this time. As equals. The screen went dark as Zorn cut the connection. Vrax turned to Jack. He agreed too easily. He will not forget this. Neither will we, Jack replied. But today we've shown that humans shouldn't be underestimated. Lieutenant Kraz, who had been silent, finally spoke. What happens now? Jack looked at him. Now you understand what happens when you threaten humans. We're not pets to be controlled or dominated. We're allies to be respected or enemies to be feared. The choice is yours. Throughout the Zolaxian fleet, humans revealed their true capabilities as they made their way to extraction points. The wolves had shown their teeth, and the galaxy would never see humanity the same way again. 3 months had passed since the day humans revealed their true capabilities to the Zolaxian fleet. The diplomatic ship USS Reliance floated in neutral space, now refitted with visible weapon systems and enhanced shields. Inside, Captain Foster stood at the head of a long table where representatives from both species gathered. This meeting will now begin, he announced. Earth and Zolaxia have much to discuss. Jack Monroe sat on one side of the table, wearing a new uniform that clearly displayed his rank and military status. No more pretending to be a simple cultural attaché. Across from him sat Commander Vrax, who had been appointed as the lead Zolaxian diplomat following the events aboard the Vanguard. Before we begin, Vrax said, his voice carrying throughout the room, I wish to acknowledge the change in our understanding of humans. Captain Foster nodded. We appreciate that, Commander. Our goal has always been peace, but not at the cost of being treated as inferiors. Admiral Zorn had been forced to step down after the incident. Many Zolaxians now viewed his aggressive actions as reckless and based on poor intelligence. Lieutenant Kraz sat further down the table, his posture stiff but respectful. His encounters with Jack had changed him profoundly. Samantha Hayes, now openly serving as chief of security for the human delegation, stood by the door. Her keen eyes watched the Zolaxian guards, who now regarded her with cautious respect rather than dismissive amusement. We have prepared a new treaty, Captain Foster continued, one that recognizes both our species as equals despite our physical differences. The new agreement was displayed on screens around the room. Gone were the patronizing terms and restrictions that had limited human ships to predetermined routes. In their place were mutual defense pacts and technology exchange programs. You understand, Vrax said carefully, that many of my people still struggle to view humans as equals. Your physical frames are smaller, your lifespans shorter. Jack leaned forward. And yet, when put to the test, neither of those things determined the outcome. No, Vrax agreed. They did not. Lieutenant Kraz spoke up unexpectedly. I was wrong about humans. The admission clearly cost him some pride. I thought physical strength defined capability. I was mistaken. The room fell silent. For a Zolaxian military officer to admit error was almost unheard of. Your species reminded us of an important truth, Kraz continued. True strength comes in many forms. Jack nodded to Kraz, a gesture of respect between former adversaries. As the meeting progressed, the details of the new relationship between humans and Zolaxians took shape. Joint patrols would replace the previous system where Zolaxian ships monitored human vessels. Technology would be shared rather than merely displayed. And most importantly, a new language protocol was established. The term pet will no longer be used in reference to any sentient species, Vrax announced. Our translators have been reprogrammed accordingly. When the meeting ended, Jack found himself standing beside Commander Vrax at the observation window. Earth was visible in the distance, a blue jewel against the blackness of space. Your world is beautiful, Vrax said. Worth protecting, Jack replied. As is mine. Vrax turned to face Jack. I must confess something. When we first met, I too thought of you as something like a pet. Intelligent but ultimately harmless and in need of guidance. And now? Now I see more clearly. Your species compensates for physical limitations with remarkable ingenuity and determination. When threatened, you become formidable opponents. Jack smiled. We prefer to be formidable allies. Indeed. Vrax extended his hand in the human gesture of agreement that he had learned. Allies. Jack shook the offered hand, noting how far they had come from their first meeting. Later that evening, Jack joined Samantha and the other former operatives for a quiet celebration in the ship's lounge. They had accomplished their mission without starting an interstellar war, no small achievement. Have you heard about Kraz? Samantha asked, sliding into the seat next to Jack. What about him? He's requested permission to study human combat techniques. Apparently he was impressed by how you threw him during your confrontation. Jack laughed. Never thought I'd see the day. The Zolaxians are adapting faster than we expected, Samantha noted. Their military is already incorporating some of our tactics into their training. Good, Jack said. The more they understand us, the less likely we are to face another conflict. The door to the lounge opened, and to everyone's surprise, Lieutenant Kraz entered. The room fell silent as the Zolaxian looked around uncomfortably. I was invited, he said, holding up a digital invitation, by Captain Foster. Jack stood and gestured to an empty seat. Join us, Lieutenant. Kraz carefully lowered himself into the human-sized chair. Your captain suggested I should socialize with humans to better understand your species. He's right, Jack replied. Understanding comes from interaction, not just observation. Kraz looked around at the humans who had once hidden among his people as supposed pets. I have questions. Many questions. We have answers, Samantha said. And questions of our own. As the evening progressed, something remarkable happened. Laughter began to fill the room, both human and Zolaxian. Stories were exchanged, experiences shared. The barriers between species slowly eroded. 1 month later, Jack stood in the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council. Earth had been invited to join for the first time, and he had been selected as part of the delegation. Commander Vrax stood beside him as they entered together, a symbol of the new alliance. Representatives from dozens of species filled the massive chamber. Many turned to stare at the humans, clearly having heard stories about the recent confrontation with the Zolaxians. As they took their seats, Jack overheard a tall insect-like alien speaking to its companion. Those are the humans? They look so fragile. I hear the Zolaxians keep them as pets on their ships. Before Jack could respond, Commander Vrax turned to the alien. The humans are our allies, not pets. A distinction my people learned at great cost. The alien's antennae twitched in confusion. But they are so small. What threat could they pose? Vrax's 4 eyes fixed on the alien with intensity. Size can be deceiving. The humans have a saying. It's not the size of the dog in the fight, but the size of the fight in the dog. Jack smiled as Vrax continued. If you value peace, treat humans with respect. For when you threaten what they value, these small beings become the most formidable warriors in the galaxy. The alien stepped back, clearly reassessing its view of the humans. As the council meeting began, Jack caught Vrax's eye and nodded in appreciation. The galaxy was learning what the Zolaxians had discovered. Humans might appear small and harmless, but they were neither weak nor tame. They were allies worth having and enemies best avoided, and they absolutely, positively were not pets.